Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing sort of the topic, stop calling them laws. And the reason for the title, I was reading through various things and I ended up kind of honing in on this or pinpointing this, reading ASEAN Now. Recent article, ASEAN Now, ASEANnow.com. Article is titled, Top Official Describes the Popular Test and Go Entry as a Loophole Exposing Thailand to Omicron, which use of the term loophole I thought was rather odd. Quoting directly, business leaders within Thailand's foreign tourism industry and wider business community on Friday were apprehensive about the government's moves to tighten public health laws. I'll get to that in a minute. Quoting further, and in particular to indefinitely suspend the popular test and go entry regime, which had, in the previous 2 months, I think it was even less than 2 months, side note there, quoting further, breathe life into the country's dormant foreign tourism industry, spurring hope of economic recovery in 2022. No doubt about that. It was really looking good until about the end of until the end of December 21, and then it wasn't looking so good anymore as we saw the test and go scheme in. But the point, the thrust of this video, tighten public health laws. Now let me go to another article here, and quoting directly, it's again from ASEAN Now, ASEANnow.com. Article is titled, Thai Police in Omicron Alert, Crackdowns Nationwide to Stop Spread of Variant After PM's Order. I've said this before and I'd say it again. To me, it's the height of hubris to believe that human activity can stop the spread of this. It's like thinking that humans can stop a tornado. I just don't see how that makes any sense, but I'll leave that where it's at. Quoting directly and to the point of this video, now cases are surging in Thailand. The Royal Police have been instructed to ensure that Rule 9, keep that in mind, Rule 9 of the emergency decree in particular is followed to the letter. Quoting further, this will mean that the loophole, they keep using the term loophole too. You know, there's no loophole. Loophole is a word that means there's a gap, if you will, in the language of a piece of legislation, or differing laws create a conflict which results in an individual being able to avoid, for example, you often hear this term in tax. You know, there's a tax loophole with respect to taxation where you can avoid tax by doing something a certain way or by doing something under one regime which allows you to avoid tax under another one, and thereby you're using a loophole. A disease does not use a loophole. Diseases are not lawyers that are finding, exceptions in the code and then use them to their benefit. Okay, diseases just spread. I've seen it multiple. I think even Towieson was saying loophole with respect, or at least that was what it was being translated to in the English language press. But this use of the word loophole is just strange to me. But okay, quoting further, this will mean that the loophole that allows bars and pubs to act as restaurants will be scrutinized, and prosecutions for law breaking will follow. Well, let's be clear, and I've done the analysis on this going back months ago. This isn't a law. This is part, as noted right here in this article, instructed to ensure that Rule 9 of the emergency decree, it's an emergency decree, not a law, not a promulgated law. As I've discussed in other videos, I don't even think the way that they apply the decree is correct under the Enabling Act, based on my reading of it, but one man's opinion, I'll set that aside. But I keep hearing that, tightening of laws, not laws, okay? It's part of the emergency decree. And I would also make a strong argument that I don't think an emergency, especially one that has this level of interference in folks' day-to-day lives, was meant to go on this long. And I think truly the circumstances with this latest strain, it really begs the question as to whether the emergency decree needs to continue. As we've discussed in other videos, yes, it's more transmissible. yes, we're going to see more cases. The rest of the world is seeing the same thing, but it's far less lethal. You know, lethality, saving lives, was the original sort of pretext for doing this in the first place. And yet now it just seems to be almost an ongoing game of numbers versus heightening restrictions. You know, it's just sort of this weird pendulum that keeps going back and forth. Long story short, not a law. Again, quoting directly, they even say it in this article. Rule 9 of the emergency decree. It's not some law sitting around out there that was promulgated by Parliament. Okay? So let's just call it what it is.